The topic that I want to broach today is paralysis by analysis. That is, you need to give out a major presentation or speak with someone in conversation, but there's just one problem. You have thousands and thousands of information points or just hours of material, and you can't pick what you should present and what you should exclude. And you're literally paralyzed by the situation. So how do you select which information to include, and how do you prevent yourself from being paralyzed in this type of situation? That's what we're going to cover. So this is a communication dilemma that I see in a lot of successful communicators, and even in a lot of my clients, especially if they come from a science background or a more logical background, because they don't want to be just saying the essential things without backing everything up with data. So the first thing to realize is that this is a good dilemma to have, okay? It would be a lot worse of a situation if you have no information to present. When you have too much information to present, that's pretty good because you can just reorganize it and you can prioritize it and you can choose the most effective version of your presentation. And that's exactly my next point. So the technique that I use with a lot of my executive clients for this type of situation is what I call the layered conveyor. And it's a pretty funny name, but what you want to do is the following. You want to take that big amount of information and you want to layer it in terms of that. So what happens is, let's say for example that you're seeking a private equity investment in your company of 1 billion to transform the company over 3 years, for example. So what you do is, layer 1 is the elevator pitch, or even shorter. It's just saying, hey, we need an investment of 1 billion, period. Layer 2 is going a little bit deeper. It's saying, hey, we need a 1 billion investment over 3 years to optimize the operations and become a market leader, for example. So what you're doing is you're taking layer 1 and adding just a little bit of information. And maybe instead of 30 seconds or 1 minute, maybe this takes 2 to 3 minutes. Then layer 3 is going one step deeper. It's saying we need 1 billion over 3 years to transform the company and become a market leader. Maybe we are going to divest this line of business, we're going to create a new department, whatever it is. So as you see, this is very handy because you're not excluding any information. You're just prioritizing information. So what you do is you start with the general topics, the big things, and then you deliver layer 1. And you ask your audience, is this enough information? In some cases, it may be. If someone is just asking, what are you looking for? What do you need? In other cases, they may say, hey, I need you to go deeper on the investment part. And then you switch to layer 2. Okay, so in terms of investment, we need 1 billion over 3 years. And this is how we're going to use the money, in general terms. And then you ask again, is this enough for you, or do you need me to go into more detail? This is great because it avoids the paralysis by analysis. You have all this information and you can communicate it, so you're not eliminating any information, you're just prioritizing what you say first. And the audience itself defines how deep you go. It's important to notice that before anything else, you need to insert structure into your presentation. That is, the only way that you can create this kind of pyramid and to start with a small amount of information and then start to layer it more and more in terms of detail is to start by having the big topics. So for example, if we are seeking that investment in terms of private equity of 1 billion, what are the top 3 or 4 topics? Well, maybe it's the quantity of money that we need. Maybe it's the set of optimizations that we're going to do, so the change in the strategy. Maybe it's the time frame as well, and the order of the tasks that need to be done. And then finally, maybe it's the specifics of the deal, how we're going to close it, what we're looking for, the consideration of the deal, whatever it is. And this is interesting because, by the way, structure is in itself a persuasion superweapon. You've probably heard about Steve Jobs' presentation skills, right? Where he would go on stage and he would say, I have 3 main things to speak about. And this is actually a very effective persuasion tool because what happens is when you reduce a complex set of information into a set of topics, such as 2 key topics, 3 key topics, what happens is the mental effort associated with it seems a lot lower. So in reality, it may be 10 topics or 20 topics, but they're clustered around 2 or 3 main things. And that's exactly the same thing that you want to do. And this is very useful because if you start with the 2 or 3 main topics, they can actually unfold and extend into 20 or 30, but they still seem simple because you only mention the 2 or 3 main topics. And then if the audience wants to go deeper, then you go deeper. And then maybe one of the topics unfolds into 3 or 4. And maybe those 3 or 4 can unfold into 20 or 30 or 50. But the key here is the general idea is very simple. It's just a set of key principles. And then if they want to explore them, then things get more complex. This is a very flexible technique because it allows you to customize your message for different mediums. When you think about it in terms of layers, then you can use layer 1 for short communications, an elevator pitch, telling your family what you're doing, and so on. You can use layer 2 for shorter communications. For example, doing a bio of a project or an investment, which is 2 or 3 paragraphs, or 2 or 3 statements, or maybe to give a short presentation in a project portfolio in a presentation for a board. For example, there's 20 projects to be presented and you're presenting this one in specific. It's longer than one statement, but it's still not a lot of detail. Then layer 3 can be used for a slide deck or to present a project to the project team or whatever it is. And by the way, this can be applied to anything, to an investment, a project, presenting yourself as a candidate, selling a product, whatever it is. You compile the information into a one-liner or one statement, layer 1, then you go one layer deeper if they need more information, and then you just keep on going. And you're never paralyzed by the amount of information that you need to convey. A great example of this are FAQs, or the frequently asked questions, usually in the sales page of a product or service. Because think about it, when you go to the FAQs, you have a list of topics, right? How do I pay? What are the payment plans? How does this course work? Or how does this product work? And so on. So you select the question that you want and you click on it. And then usually there's an answer. But the answer is usually composed of a first statement or paragraph which contains the answer. And then there are more statements below it that expand on the answer. So you're the one who defines how deep you want to go. So you see the list of questions. That's layer 1. And then you say, hey, let me know more about this one. Can I pay with card? Can I pay with Stripe? Then you click on it, and maybe you only want to read the first statement of the answer. Credit cards are accepted, Stripe payments are not, for example. That's layer 2. But maybe you actually want to know all about how to pay for this product. I know I'm giving a funny example, but this is real. So you can read all of the paragraphs and the statements after that. So that's layer 3. In other words, depending on how much you need to learn about the product or service or project or whatever it is, you go as deep as you need in terms of information. And that's exactly how you want to think about your own communication. You give them layer 1. If it's not enough, they step to layer 2. If it's not enough, you go to layer 3, and so on. So you have all of this information available, and you just prioritize it in terms of that. So the audience is the one who defines how deep they want to go. So this is how you use the layer conveyor technique. When you have a big amount of information to convey, first you think of the top 2 or 3 topics. You structure it, because that way it seems a lot simpler. Then you have layer 1, which is the summarized version of the information. Then layer 2, which goes a little bit deeper. Then layer 3, which goes even deeper, and so on, for how many layers as you need. And you let the audience be the ones who choose what layer do they want to go down to. So you just present layer 1, and then you ask them, is this enough detail? If it's not, they go to layer 2. And then you ask again, is this enough detail, or do you need more detail on a specific topic? Then maybe they go to layer 3, layer 4, or whatever is needed. But you're not paralyzed, because you decide what are the general principles and what is the top level view of the information, and then you let them go as deep as they need to go. It's very useful in any professional or personal context, from pitching an investment idea to convincing a board to convincing your family member to go watch a movie or any other purpose. Just structure the information and allow the person to go as deep as they need to go. If you found the technique useful, consider liking and subscribing, and remember to check out our channel for more persuasion and negotiation techniques for multiple aspects of life. Thank you so much for watching.